Assalamu alaikum. Can everybody hear me and see me?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just wait a couple of minutes, more minutes for a few more people to join in,
Perfect.
and then I'll start.
That's perfect.
Can you guys also see this slideshow?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
So just a note to everyone that's joining us, please use the question and answer box or the chat to ask your questions of Dr. Mariam, and then we will take some of those questions at the end.
I just want to double check. The chat box is not obscuring the view, right?
No.
No, perfect.
And while we're waiting, if our attendees would like to introduce themselves in the chat, we would love to hear from you and hear from who is attending today.
Assalamu alaikum, Atiya. Can you guys also please tell me like what you guys are doing? Maybe like, are you guys medical students? Or are you doing a house job? That'll help me. Okay, welcome Atiya, welcome Muntadir, welcome Bilal. Welcome Bakir.
Yes, please, Dr.
Yeah.
Zattu, please
All right.
begin.
So Assalamu alaikum everybody. My name is Mariam Kazim Datu. I'm basically from Pakistan and I'm currently working as a senior house officer at Royal Bournemouth Hospital in the UK. So in today's seminar, what I want to do with you guys is tell you about postgraduate opportunities in the UK and mainly share with you guys my journey so that those of you who are interested in pursuing your further medical career in the UK can gain some help and guidance from my own journey. So before I start speaking about my journey, so this is just basically a gist of what the UK training pathway looks like. And again, this varies a lot, specialty to specialty. So don't worry too much about this. I don't know if you guys can follow my cursor. But what I mainly want you guys to understand is that in the UK, the training pathway looks a bit different from what we are used to. So in UK, when a medical student graduates from university, they have 2 years of foundation training, and then they apply for specialty training, which again, this can vary from like 3 years to 8 years. So it depends from specialty to specialty. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is so that you guys can understand what the UK pathway looks like, how you can enter the UK pathway, where you can enter the UK pathway from, and how to plan your journey better. So after medical school, there are 2 stages of postgraduate training. Like I explained, there's foundation training followed by specialty training. Foundation training is 2 years in contrast to a lot of, like I know in Pakistan, we only have 1 year of house jobs. So it's a little bit different from that. And then after that, there's specialty training. And like I told you guys, it's varies 3 years to 8 years. What's important to know is that if you want to apply for UK specialty training, you must have at least 2 years of clinical experience by the time you apply for clinical training or specialty training. So how I kind of plan my journey, and I'll again speak about my journey, is that what I did was that I did 12 months of house job back in my home country. I did all the exams, applied for GMC registration, and then I started a non-training job here. I've been doing that for a little over a year now, and then that makes me eligible for specialty training. So again, this can kind of help you plan your journey depending on what stage you're in. If you guys are a medical student, or if you've already had 2 years of clinical experience, you can plan your journey accordingly. When I'm speaking about training and non-training jobs, again, some people get a bit confused. What this means is, basically, a training job is it's just like a specialty, and you're going to progress year to year, and you're going to go towards being a consultant. A non-training job, in simple terms, is like a medical officer. But the advantages of applying and entering the system as a senior house officer, or when you apply for a non-training job, is that you can apply for them all year round. And then, whereas in training jobs, like, the time frame, you get a bit stuck in that. There's only, recruitment only takes place once a year for most specialties, and for some specialties only twice a year. So depending on, what you apply, like if you're getting into a non-training job, you can just apply for it all year round. If you get your GMC registration, like any time of the year, you can apply for the non-training jobs at any time. Other than that, I would also personally recommend to start with a non-training job. The reason for that is because the UK medical system is quite different from what we are used to back home. So, there's it's a completely different system. There's a different way things are done here. And when you start a training job, there are already expectations from you to complete your membership exams at a certain period of time. So with a non-training job, you can kind of, adapt to the system, understand the system. And then a lot of trust, they also provide you with like a shadowing period. So that can help you settle better. So that's what I did. And now coming to the steps of GMC registration, I've only given you a gist about this to basically help you to understand what the system in UK looks like, because I know eventually everyone wants to get into specialty training. So basically, for anyone to practice in the UK, you need to have GMC registration, that is General Medical Council registration. The steps to getting a GMC registration are that you need to have done an internship. You must have an acceptable pattern of internship recognized by the GMC. And again, I'll speak about all these points a little bit more in detail as I go along. So you must have an internship. Then you must have given an English proficiency exam, which is basically your IELTS or your OET. Again, I'll speak a bit more about that. Then you give your registration exams. So you give your PLAB 1 and your PLAB 2. Then you apply for your GMC registration. Once you get your GMC registration, you can start applying for jobs. And this is the link through which I applied for jobs. And then you give your interview, and then you start your job here. And once obviously you start practicing, once you start your job here, you'll get more opportunities. You'll understand more how the system works, and it'll just help you plan your journey better. So my personal journey, so I basically graduated my medical school in December 2017. I graduated from Ziauddin Medical College in Pakistan. And our medical college also used to give us a 6-week break for electives, especially. So during that break, what I did was that I came to Imperial College London, St. Mary's Hospital, and I did an elective, which also was, I think, quite helpful. And, if some of you guys are still in your final year, or you still have a break for electives, you guys can consider doing something if possible for you. Again, I know COVID has probably complicated things a bit, but if you guys have the opportunity to do it, I would definitely recommend doing an elective. Then what I did was I did my house job. So December 17, I graduated. I started my house job straight away in January 2018. And I did my house job till January 2019. During my house job only in March, I gave my IELTS exam, which is the English exam. I got the required score. And whilst that, I prepared for my PLAB 1 and I gave that in November 2018. Then once my house job finished in January 2019, what I did was that I gave my PLAB 2 in April 2019. And then I applied for GMC registration, which I got in July. I started applying for jobs in August. And then I got my first interview for my current job, which is in October 2019. And then I applied for the visa and everything again. And I started my job in December 2019. So you can see the whole thing took me, the whole process of basically from my medical college to getting a job, to starting a job took around 2 years. Again, this can, vary, but if you're focused and if you planned well, you can even shorten this. I know a couple of people from my medical college who actually got registration even a couple of months before I did, and they started their jobs even earlier. So if you stay focused, you can get it earlier. So starting with your house job, a lot of people, I think a few of you have mentioned that you guys are in 6th year medical school or in final year medical school. So you guys are probably going to be finishing soon and going to be starting your house job or your internship soon. So my tips to you guys are that make sure before you start for your house job, make sure you have applied for a provisional license to practice in your country. So whatever medical regulatory body you have, like I know in Pakistan, it's called PNC. So you have to apply for a provisional license and only then start your house job. Because if you don't have that provisional license, and when you're later applying for GMC registration, they will basically ask you for proof whether you are actually legally allowed to practice without a provisional license or not. So this does cause hindrances and delays later if you don't have it. So make sure the first thing you do is after graduating, apply for a provisional license and then start your house job. And then when you're doing your internship, make sure that your internship is meeting the acceptable criteria for an internship that is advised by the GMC. So as for the GMC, again, this I've taken from the GMC website. Also, sorry, I forgot to say, if you guys have any questions, just jot them down. And in the end, I'll give you guys some time and I'll answer your questions. So the acceptable pattern for internship as per the GMC guidelines is that you must have a minimum of 12 months continuous medical practice. So by this, it means is you must not have breaks, because I've known a couple of people who do their internship in a way, they do 6 months and take a couple of months break and do another 6 months, but that's not acceptable for GMC. So make sure it's 12 months continuous medical practice. Make sure you're not absent for more than, sorry, I can't because of the window, more than 20 days. You shouldn't be absent for more than 20 days in addition to your annual leave. So just make sure you don't have too many leaves, or if you even do, you must have a reasonable explanation for it. Other than that, if you have completed 12 to 18 months, then make sure that you spend at least 3 months in medicine and 3 months in surgery. And I don't know about the other countries, how many months you guys have internship for, but in Pakistan, make sure that if you have, like I did 1 year house job. So I had 6 months of medicine, then I had 3 months of surgery, and I had 3 months of gynecology and obstetrics. So that kind of fit the requirement. And the reason I'm telling you guys all of this is because a lot of people, they go through the whole process. They, by the time it comes, they give their PLAB exams, they do everything. And by the time it comes to apply for GMC registration, they realize that their house job didn't meet the criteria. So then that can be quite disappointing. You can avoid that. And, this was all, again, quite a detailed document. So you can read more on this document and make sure that your internship is acceptable. If you are confused about whether or not your internship is acceptable or not, then you can always email the GMC as well, because they're quite helpful and they can guide you as to whether your internship will be acceptable for a GMC registration or not. Then during your house job, a couple of more tips that I would like to give you guys is that And again, this will always help you later when you're applying for jobs and for specialty training. Try to maintain a portfolio or a learning logbook. You can always request that your medical college or like the hospital where you're doing your house job from provides you with something like that. Like my university gave us a logbook where we could record all the procedures, even something as simple as, doing cannulations or catheterizations, just log them and get them signed by a senior. Because I know these are all basic things that are expected from us, but if you have proof of this later, it can help you getting your foundation competency signed off when you apply for specialty training, and you won't have to worry too much about it. So make sure you do that. Then secondly, if you have, try to take part in as many teaching as you can, because again, here they really encourage teaching. So if you're doing your house job, if you're teaching medical students, even if you're just doing something simple as bedside teaching, make sure that you give students feedback forms and make sure that you collect feedback. Or you can just like create your own feedback form. So again, the Royal College website has a feedback form which you can download. I've put the link here and I'll share the slides with you guys later as well, so you guys can use this as a reference. So it's very important. So, later you can use it as proof, because sometimes during house job, even I did a lot of informal teaching for medical students, but unfortunately I didn't have proof of that. So it's always nice to, be well prepared for this in advance. Make sure you have any presentations, seminars, grand rounds that you delivered. Make sure you have all the slides saved, keep a Google Drive of it. And if possible, try to get like a letter signed by any senior or consultant as a proof that you've actually, given those seminars or those grand rounds. So that also, again, it will help you later in your portfolio. Another thing I would recommend is, during your house job, if you have time, try to take part in research projects. Again, when you apply for specialty training later and you apply for jobs, these are things that always give you more points. So if you can get a research publication, you can get a lot of points for that. And it looks very good. It makes you kind of stand out, because everyone applying for jobs will have done a house job and will have passed their exams. So these are things that will make you stand out later. If you have any leadership or managerial roles, if you're part of any drive in your university, or basically any group, anything, and you're leading that, so make sure you have kind of a proof of that as well. There are many organizations or even if there's a society and you're leading that society, make sure that you kind of have a proof of that as well. Another tip I would give you guys is obviously avoid any career gaps, even if you have some delays after your house job in giving your PLAB exams. Try to keep doing something, whether it's just something as basic as a lecturer, or even if you're giving like some exams or you're taking part in a research project, make sure that you have something to fill in the gaps when you're applying for GMC registration, because if you have a longer gap of more than 12 months, you have to give explanations for that. And if you're not basically doing anything, that can be a bit difficult. So now coming on to the journey for the GMC registration. So you've done your house job, your English exam, the English proficiency exam, you can give during your house job as well. So there are two possibilities. You can give IELTS or you can give OET. Right, so IELTS, it basically stands for International English Language Testing System. It's got 4 components. There's a reading section in which it's basically a comprehension passage and they ask you questions related to that. There's a listening section in which they'll give you a microphone, like they'll give you a speaker, and you will basically be tested on how well you can listen and grasp things. It's fairly simple. Then there's the speaking, where you'll have a person sitting next to you. They'll ask you a couple of topics to speak upon. And writing is just essay writing. You need a score of 7.0 across all 4 domains in your IELTS, and an overall score of 7.5 at least. And if not possible, like if you can't give your IELTS, then you can also give an OET, which is the medicine version of the exam. And this has a lower criteria because there are some people who are not able to get this score. So an OET is a simpler one. And nowadays it's available in Pakistan as well. So you can easily give it, and it's available across many countries worldwide. So you can give your OET as well. So how to prepare for the IELTS? Again, this is something that varies from person to person, because again, this test is not really testing your knowledge or your medical knowledge. This is basically testing how proficient you are in English and how well you can speak in English. So you need to kind of gauge what, how well you feel your skills are, your English skills are. And what I would just suggest is, again, you can't really prepare for this exam. Like, you can't learn anything, but all you can do is practice. So I took around 3 weeks for my IELTS, and I used this website, this one, IELTS Online Tests. It's a very good website. There are practice tests for each and every component available, and there are a couple of past papers as well. So if you just practice with these, tests, you can get an idea of what to expect on the actual exam day, and it'll just give you a bit of a heads up. Sorry, I just saw these questions. My chat had gone, so I'll keep a list of, you guys can either write your questions in right now, but I'll just answer them in the end if that's okay. So is everyone following so far? Is everyone understanding?
Yes, I think so. I think the questions are a little bit conditional, so I think we can tackle them at the end. But yes.
Yeah. So I'll speak. I've seen it. Sorry, my chat box, because I was going through the slides, kind of closed. So, but I'll talk about this shadowing period, and I'll tell you guys this. So yeah, the answer to the house job being the eligibility criteria for medical license is yes, you have to have a house job for GMC registration. But what I'm talking about is for your own home country. So I'll basically in Pakistan or any medical country where you're doing your house job, you need to get a provisional license before you do your house job. So that's a requirement. And then once you do your house job, then you can get complete GMC registration after you've given the exams. So after the IELTS, so this is about the IELTS. It's a very simple exam. Again, just practice for it. Try to get this for those of you who are in who are in final year or who are still in medical school. This is again something that you can give during your medical school. So you can save time, like in your final year, get done with your IELTS, because your PLAB 1 exam, you need to have finished medical school before you give that. So if you get your IELTS done with, then you won't have to worry about anything else. And then you can just focus on your PLAB exams. Once you're done with your English exams, make an online account on GMC Online to book your PLAB exams. And then you give your PLAB 1 and your PLAB 2. So basically the PLAB 1 is an exam that's basically, it's a written exam. It's a multiple choice question exam. And you have best of 5 MCQs. You have 180 MCQs. And the exam is 3 hours. Again, this takes place in many countries across the world. So you can usually give it from the country you live in. You just have to register for it through the GMC account, and you have to look for the availability of dates. It's a fairly simple exam if you're well prepared. I took 3 to 4 months to prepare for it. And it's not a very complicated exam. They only test you on your grasp of your medical, like your basic medical and surgical specialties, like your basic specialties that you studied for during your medical school. So these are the resources that I used. Again, they're like these 1,700 questions that this Dr. Khalid Saifullah has kindly compiled. So you've got categorized and uncategorized versions of these. And again, these are available on any Facebook groups, or even if you just put it on Google, most of the PDF files of these are available for free. So these 1,700 questions I would recommend is a must. Do all of these MCQs, right? And then Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine. Again, this is not like a course book, but this is like a supplemental. If there's any topic that you are confused about, then you can just use this as a reference because it'll give you the guidelines. Then again, so once you do, try to basically, if you're keeping 3 to 4 months, try to get these questions finished. Try to finish the question bank. And then your last month, you should leave for any recalls or clinchers. So again, these are found on Facebook groups. These are files that are basically compiled by people who've given the actual exam, and they've just, put the questions that they had in the exam. So that's why they call recalls or clinchers, the important points that you should know. And then there are mock exams, so you can like time yourself and make sure, because again, you can see 180 MCQs in 3 hours, 180 minutes. It's more of a test of time. So make sure before the actual exam, you time yourself and you make sure that you're able to finish the actual exam. So all of these resources are available for free, but there's another PLABable as well, which is a very good question bank, and it's got a subscription fees. I think it's like £20 for 3 months, but I would also definitely recommend it because I used it and it was very, very helpful. Then, so once you're done with your PLAB 1 exam, right, you give your PLAB 2 exam. So your PLAB 1 exam, again, this PLAB 1 exam is available in many countries across the world, but the PLAB 2 exam you have to do in the UK. So you have to come, it takes place in Manchester mostly, or sometimes it takes place in London as well. So the PLAB exam, it covers everything that a UK trained doctor should know on the first day of foundation year 2. And this is what the GMC website states. And, they've clearly said that this is your ability to apply your knowledge to the care of patients and how well you can, and not how well you can, remember or recite facts. So it's basically a test of how you apply your knowledge. It's a practical exam. So it is a long one, though. There are 18 practical stations or OSCE style stations, and I think they've been reduced to 15 during COVID, but when I gave it, there were 18. And then the thing with this is you have to travel to the UK for this exam. So again, when you apply for your PLAB 2 exam, you have to give yourself time to apply for the visa and everything. They test you on 3 domains: data gathering skills, clinical management skills, and interpersonal skills. So important things to consider when you're giving your PLAB 2 is that, you have to go to the UK. So whenever you're booking your exam, give yourself enough margin. Don't book it very soon or very late, because then you have to apply for a visitor visa and then you have to travel to the UK to give the exam. Another thing about the PLAB 2 exams is that because it's a practical exam, there are a lot of academies with courses, and these courses are now online as well, approximately 2 weeks. And a lot of times people ask the question, should we attend this course or should we prepare ourselves? I personally did attend a course. It was in London. It was for 2 weeks. I attended Common Stations. And I think personally, I would recommend it because it just helps you better to kind of understand, because, the way things are practiced in the UK is quite different from the way things are practiced back home. So it kind of helps you understand what is expected from you. And then even later when you're actually practicing in the UK, the course really does help you, in your daily medical, like when you're daily going to the hospital, it actually helps you a lot for that. So I would personally say, if you have the opportunity, attend the course in person. And then plus, in the academy, you meet a lot of people as well. So you can, again, practice scenarios, and that helps you, because this exam, again, is practical and not like, it's how you apply your knowledge. It's not really testing your knowledge. So once I got done with my PLAB 1 and the PLAB 2 exam, I applied for GMC registration. Now for GMC registration as well, these are things that you should keep in mind, because again, they can take a bit of time. So you need to make sure that your primary medical qualification is verified online, and there's a website called EPIC. This can take up to a few weeks because you have to upload your medical degree and send it to them, and they basically check with your medical school whether your medical degree is authentic or not. So again, try to get this done. I would suggest once you've actually given your PLAB 1 and 2, like once you've given your PLAB 2 exam and you're waiting for your results, this is something you can do during that time. Plus, another thing that is needed for GMC registration is you need a certificate of good standing from your medical regulatory authority. So in Pakistan, that's PMC or PMDC. But again, this you need to remember that it's only valid for 6 months. It's nothing really, it's just like a generic document, and it just tells that you've never had any formal complaints or anything against you, and you're on the register. But you still need it, and it's only valid for 6 months. So ideally apply for it once you've given your PLAB 2 and you're waiting for the results. Then once you're done with your PLAB 1 and your PLAB 2, you get the results. I think PLAB 1, even it takes 4 weeks. And then once you give your PLAB 2, after your PLAB 2, it takes around 4 weeks to give the results. Once you get the results, you basically apply for the GMC registration. And these are the documents that you need. So if you have these prepared well in advance, you can apply for the GMC registration online. It's fairly simple process, like it's in your account, like it's a step-by-step process. And these are the things that you need and you can kind of prepare for in advance, in addition to your IELTS and your PLAB 1 and your PLAB 2. And then basically they'll ask you for any other documents like your house job certificate as well, your degree, any supporting documents that you need. But again, you're going to have to, during your GMC registration, any gaps that you have, you're going to have to explain that as well, which is why I recommended do not try to basically avoid too many gaps in your medical career. So once I got my GMC registration, and once you guys get it, that comes for your time for applying for jobs. So like I said, I tried for a non-training job initially, and this is the website you can apply for jobs. Basically, again, this website is quite simple. You make a portfolio for yourself. You can create your application. They're going to ask you your details, where you graduated from, and then they're like these directed questions, whether you've taken part in any leadership, have you done any teaching. So, and then there's this whole thing in the end to add some supporting information and make your CV. So the important things to remember when you're actually applying for a job and when you're making your portfolio is that less is more. And why I say that is because I have had a couple of people who basically send me their, who weren't able to get jobs soon, and when they send me their application or their CV, it was so long, it was like 4 to 5 pages long. So remember that everyone who's actually applying for a job has gotten a GMC registration. They've all done their IELTS, they've all done their PLAB. So you don't need to speak about things that are same for everything. Try to speak about what makes you stand out. If you've done anything different, try to speak about that. What makes you a good doctor? What makes, what tells that you're dedicated towards your specialty? So highlight the features that make you stand out. Don't make your CV more than 1 page long, because again, the person who is going to be doing the sorting out the applications, remember they have hundreds and hundreds of applications, so they won't read 4 to 5 pages that you write. They're only going to skim through the applications, and you must really stand out. And then also when you're applying for the jobs, each job actually has like a separate document which has a person specific specification. So try to tweak each of your applications according to the person specification, and try to tell them what would make you suitable for that job. And then after that, basically the interview comes. The interviews are fairly simple. I haven't made a separate slide for that, but you can even request the hospitals. If you get a call for an interview, you can do it via Skype or Zoom. And it's not very complicated. Your PLAB 2 knowledge will come into use in that. They'll just ask you about your achievements, and maybe they'll give you a scenario or two. So it's fairly simple. I think the only advice I would give about the interview is just be very, very confident. And then, hopefully you'll get that. So once you get the interview, if you get offered a job, you can apply for your visa and then start your job. Another optional thing is, for those of you who have a bit of time, like I did a clinical elective, but some people even after graduation can do clinical attachments in a hospital in the UK, and that can kind of help them understand the system better. And that also in some cases, helps you apply for jobs, because you've actually not officially worked in the system, but if you've they prefer people who know the system better. So again, this is something optional. The unfortunate thing is because of COVID, I know these days getting a clinical attachment is fairly difficult. But hopefully when things get better, it'll be easier. The way to apply for clinical attachments is you just um, either you can ask your seniors or ask around about hospitals. Like if you know anyone personally who's working in the UK, you can ask them if if the hospital are looking for clinical attachments. Or what you can do is you can just look up some hospitals and just email their HR. And usually the HR are very helpful. If they're looking for clinical attaches, then they will send you a list of documents and you can do that. So this is something I would, it's recommended, but it's optional. I know a lot of people who didn't do a clinical attachment or an elective and still ended up getting a job. So it's not necessary, but it's optional. So basically, this was my whole journey, how to get the GMC registration. You give your English exam, PLAB 1, PLAB 2, apply for GMC registration, then apply for jobs. But there are some alternative ways to get GMC registration. Again, I'll just touch upon this because I know if most of you, I think, if you guys are in final year, this won't apply, but there is this medical training initiative pathway that allows international junior and middleweight doctors to work and train in the UK for up to 2 years. So again, the kind of the advantage in this is you don't need the PLAB exams. And I think you can you can apply for this if you've given your MRCP exams. But the problem with this is, you come through a different visa. So normally if you come through a work visa, that's a tier 2 visa. But the MTI initiative, you come through a different visa. And then later, if you plan to, if you do end up getting a training program, the 2 years you actually spend aren't counted towards your ILR, and ILR is like your indefinite leave to remain. So basically, when you're living in the UK after 5 years, you can apply for an indefinite leave to remain and then eventually for a passport. So the problem is, if you come through this visa, the 2 years you spent will not be counted. And once you get a training job, you're going to have to spend another 5 years to apply for an ILR and then eventually a passport. And this is recently a new requirement for those who have passed acceptable overseas registration exams, but I think, again, this might not apply to a lot of you, but if there is any one of you who've maybe finished, your USMLE exams, your step 1, your step 2, or the exams, the Canadian qualification exams, or the Australian Medical Council exams, then you can also now apply. This is something that they've recently started. So if by any chance there's any one of you, who are aiming towards these exams and have changed their pathway to the UK, you can still get GMC registration through this. So I've put this slide. I know this doesn't apply for a lot of us, and you can read about this more in the GMC registration, but this is just one of the options. But again, the easiest pathway is try to go through the route, the PLAB 1, the IELTS and everything. So that is it. And then I will take, if there's any questions, I'll answer those. If you guys want, you can even, what I'll do is I'll answer the ones in the text box. And then if you guys want, you can even open your mics and feel free to, if you guys want to ask the questions, you can do that. So sorry, one anonymous attendee has asked, what is shadowing period? So your shadowing period is basically, it's a time when you start a job. What happens is they give you a shadowing period of up to 2 to 4 weeks. So in that time period, you're not actually working and you're not actually expected to, start working like a doctor. Shadowing basically means that you just observe. So for example, when even I came in my job, they gave me 4 weeks of shadowing, and that was offered by the hospital themselves, actually. So the ward I was assigned in, what I did was I wouldn't, because the system is so different, I would just observe the doctors and then see what they're doing. And then once I got comfortable, then I would start, actually doing the jobs or doing the ward rounds. So that shadowing period really just helps you kind of getting used to the system. Does that answer your question? Sorry, whoever asked that, if you can just write. Does that answer your question?
Oh, they might not be able to unmute themselves.
All right. Okay. So, but if you can even type, but I hope you guys understand it. Basically, what it just means is you're able to observe for a couple of weeks. Whereas, if you start a training job, you're not always given that opportunity to observe. And trust me, the system is quite different. So it gives you a lot of benefit. So we've done this. Isn't house job the eligibility criteria for medical license? So like I explained, yes, you need a house job for a complete medical license, right? But before you do the house job, you need a provisional medical license. And this is in every country, not even just in Pakistan. So a lot of people aren't aware of that. And what they do is they do their house job. I mean, a lot of countries, they allow you to do the house job without even the provisional medical license. It doesn't matter. But if you apply for GMC registration later and you don't have a provisional license before you do your house job, that kind of creates a bit of a problem. And then they ask you to, they give you a couple of documents and you must verify from your hospital that, you were like you had your provisional license and you were allowed to do the house job. So this is something I just thought I'd mention because a lot of people don't know about it. So it's your provisional license that you need before your house job. What do you mean by provisional license? So it's just a requirement. There's nothing, it's just a requirement that is needed. It just kind of means that you have a license to work as a intern or a house, as a house officer. It's a fairly simple, I mean, there's nothing additional you need. You just need to provide the medical regulatory body your degree and everything, and they will give you a provisional license that, you have the license to work as a house officer. And then once you're done with your house job, then you get a complete license. So when you do your house job, the license we get from GMC, they give you a complete license to practice medicine. Then I hope that answers your question. And then, will we be at a disadvantage if we're not able to do electives at a hospital in UK like you did? So no, you will not be at a disadvantage at all. In fact, a lot of my colleagues who were either with me in medical school or my seniors, they did not have electives, nor did they have any attachment as well, but they just went through the same pathway and they got jobs as well. And they're also practicing in the UK. So no, it doesn't put you at a disadvantage, but it's something that if you have the opportunity to do and if you have the time to do, I would definitely recommend it. But no, it will not put you at a disadvantage. So don't worry if you're not able to do it. Is it okay to take the online OET exam to apply for the PLAB one? Yes, it is, because you can take it. You can take the online OET exam. You can either take the IELTS or the OET. The only reason I recommend giving the IELTS is, and sorry, I forgot to mention, is that when you're later applying for a work visa, right, the tier 2 visa, when you apply for your work visa, your IELTS, you will have to give an IELTS exam anyways. For the work visa, the passing requirement is much lower. I think you need a score of 4. So basically, if you've actually done your IELTS and you have the 7 or the 7.5 score overall, you can just use that to apply for your visa, which I did. But if not, then, you can just give the IELTS later as well. It's got a very minimal score requirement for the visa. So if, you're having difficulty passing the IELTS or you're finding the IELTS difficult, then you can give the online OET exam. But just make sure the OET exam, right, it should be the medical version of it. Unfortunately, I haven't given the OET myself, so I wish I could, guide you guys better on how to prepare for that, but I haven't given it. But in case if, I'm going to give you guys my email as well on the next slide. If you guys have any more questions, I have a couple of colleagues who have given the OET, and I'm sure I can make you guys get in touch with them and guide you guys how to prepare for the OET as well. Is it forever that you can apply by USMLE exams or just temporary for this year? So no, I think this is just a temporary thing that has been introduced recently, because I think because of COVID, they've had a more shortage of doctors and they need more doctors. And again, the PLAB exams are maybe taking a bit more time than usual. So this is something that has been recently introduced. Again, I don't know, I can't answer your question how temporary this is. Maybe it lasts for, I don't know if this is forever or they'll stop this in the next couple of years, but this has recently been started. So I think at least for this year or the next, it should be like this. So, but again, this is something that only you should do if you have already given your USMLE exams. Like I had a few colleagues who had already given their USMLE exams, and then for some reason, they changed their mind later, because the USMLE exams actually take much more time than this whole PLAB pathway will take you. So if you haven't given the USMLE exam, stick to the PLAB pathway, but this is something for those who've already given the USMLE or the AMC or the Canadian exams. So, but I don't know how temporary this is, unfortunately. Then Asad Razaz asked, can you speak a little about the procedure of applying for PLAB 1? So for PLAB 1, it's very simple. So like I gave you guys the link. So what you do is once you've given your IELTS exam, you must have basically, for PLAB 1, you must have graduated medical college, right? And you must have given your IELTS exam and meet the minimum requirement that is needed, or give your OET exam. So once you've done all those, once you've done those two things, all you have to do is you make an account on GMC on GMC Online. You create an account, you upload your medical degree. Then you also have to upload the reference of your test. Like before you actually book your PLAB 1 exam, you need to show them your mark sheet of either your IELTS or your OET, because you can't just say, you can't book it for say a couple of months down the line and say, oh, I'll give my IELTS during that time. So you must have passed your you must have gotten your IELTS done. You must have done your medical school. You can't even, unfortunately, give this exam in your 5th year like you give USMLE. So it's fairly simple procedure. You just apply these documents, and then what the website does is it gives you a whole list of dates available and the countries available. So you can just pick a date and the country of your choice or the city of your choice where you want to give the PLAB exam, and just book it and just pay online via a credit card or anything and go for the exam. So it's fairly simple. Hope that answers your question. Also, I'd be if you guys, if the person who was asked the question, if whilst I'm answering the question, if there's anything else, you can probably, I don't know if you guys can unmute, but feel free to open your microphone and ask me if there's anything else you want to ask. I'm trying to answer as much as I can.
Yes, for sure. If you raise your hand, I'll be able to unmute you so you can ask live as well for anyone in the audience.
Oh yeah, that would be great. So PLAB 1, then how significant are grades in our medical school in our home country? To be honest with you, not very significant. I mean, obviously, it's always nice if you have good grades, and even when you're applying, say when you're applying for training later, when you're applying for jobs, it's always nicer if you mention, you have, because I know my medical school used to give out distinctions. So again, that does stand out a bit in your CV, that, okay, you did well in your medical school. But it's a plus point, but if you don't have very good grades, it shouldn't matter too much. At the end of the day, what matters more is you make sure that you're given your English proficiency exam, you make sure that you pass your PLAB 1 and your PLAB 2, and then you apply for your job. So if you don't, if you've already finished medical school and you don't have very good grades, don't worry too much about it. What grade do you enter as? So yeah, that's a good question. So the answer to this is, again, you can enter when you're doing a non-training job, you can enter at any level. So you can enter as, you can either enter as FY2 or ST1 or ST2. Don't apply more than, don't apply for anything more than ST3, because ST3 is basically or unless you have many years of medical practice, because ST3 is like a registrar post in the NHS. And when you're working as a registrar, when you do on calls and everything as well, you're kind of in a you have to support all your juniors as well. So it's always nicer to start from a junior post. So like, for example, my current job that I'm doing, it's at an ST1 level. So ST1 and CT1 is practically the same thing. So you can apply for any of these. You can apply for FY. You can, in fact, even apply for FY1, but I wouldn't recommend you doing that, because if you've already done your house job, then you're kind of past that level, and the FY salary is also quite low. So try applying for an FY2 level or a CT or ST1 levels, and all the jobs that you apply through the NHS website, they're going to have the relative post. So my rule was I applied for FY2 jobs as well, and ST1 to ST2 level jobs, or basically they also call them junior clinical fellows, so you can apply for those jobs. And then
I think Asad Raza had a question. If you're unmuted, you can ask.
I want to ask about, hello, Dr. Sorry. Thank you for this presentation. I have a question about the clinical attachment. Can you please explain what are the main responsibility on that, and what are the benefit of the clinical attachment?
Yeah.
And the second question about there's some fears because it says that the jobs offer in UK is it's making it decreased. So there's some threats if you get exam on PLAB, or you cannot find job or something like that in the future.
Yeah.
So that's it.
So see, about the clinical attachment, right? What I would like, a clinical attachment, you don't have many responsibilities that you would when you're actually having a job. You're more supernumerary. So you can kind of take time, observe them, see how the system, is run. And then as you feel comfortable, you can start taking part in ward rounds or doing, normal jobs. But then again, this will always be an attachment will always kind of be under the supervision of someone. So you don't really it's kind of a way just to kind of get a flavor of what working in the NHS is like. So you won't have too many responsibilities like you would in an actual job. And secondly, about the job saturation thing that you are talking about. So even, I'll be honest with you, even I, heard these kind of things that they're saying that, it's difficult to get a job. And I know some people, obviously, it depends from person to person. Some people get jobs quicker, some people take more time. But what I would tell you is that, see, I think just medicine itself is quite difficult. And if you've done med school, that means, you deserve to be where you are. So what I would say is don't worry too much about what other people are saying. Don't get discouraged. Focus on your own journey, right? Even if they're saying, so even if less people are getting the job, even if they're saying, okay, only 2 out of 10 people are going to get the job, you can still be the 2 out of the 10 people. So if you work hard, right? If you keep a focused journey, if you work hard, if you do everything and you make yourself stand out, you can get a job in the UK and you can enter the training pathway. So in fact, even recently, I forgot to even mention this, but recently, now, in the UK, doctors are on the occupation shortage list. So now all international medical graduates can actually apply for training in the first round, whereas initially there used to be 2 rounds. The UK medical graduates used to apply in the first round, and then in the second round, when the places used to be left, that's where you could apply for. So, yes, people are going to tell you that, but I think just focus on yourself and just focus on working hard, and inshallah, you will get a job if you're focused. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right. And then Sarah and Jamal, having a tough time getting shortlisted to read my supporting information to 1,000 to 1,200 words. Okay. I do understand your question, Sarim. Yes, and this is why, again, because I have a few people who came and asked me this. And see, again, 1,000 to 1,200 words is quite a lot. I would suggest the rule is don't make your information more than, I think, 350 to 400 words. My supporting information was only 350 to 400 words. And alhamdulillah, I got a job with that. So if you want, I have switched the slide, and what I have done is I've put my email address. If you want, I can have a look at your, when I get some time, I can have a look at your portfolio and kind of help you make that better. But just like, an example of how to kind of support the statement, like, if they're looking for, you'll probably have seen that PDF document. So if there's any other thing, for example, if an ALS is a requirement or whatever requirements they have, like every job, I can't remember exactly, sorry, I've done this a year ago, but they're going to have special requirements. So kind of tell them that, okay, if there's a leadership role or something, they're looking for a good leader. So, just go okay, I have done this leadership roles, and I feel that, when I joined the NHS, I would be, a good candidate, is I have this experience, I'm a good team worker, stuff like that. Again, it's not very, it is going to be a bit vague, but just kind of use that kind of person specification to tell them what kind of makes you stand out. So if you've had any leadership roles, or if you've had any researches or any courses or anything, but I would definitely kind of recommend you to cut down your supporting information a bit as well. And feel free to email me and I can help you out later. Is that all right? And then Zainab, Heather, how can we obtain the visa? So again, the visa it's very simple. So if you're asking me about the PLAB 2 visa, the PLAB 2 visa is basically, it's a visit visa. So you go on the government.uk website, gov.uk website. You just have to apply for a visit visa and explain why you're going to the UK, explain if you're giving a course or not. And then you just basically, you tell about why you're coming to the UK, and you just apply for the visa and they'll give it to you. So it's like a regular visit visa, like a tourist visa. For the tier 2 visa, it's basically the hospital gives you, once you get accepted for the job, the hospital will give you a sponsorship letter, and then you can apply for it as well. Again, it's fairly straightforward. It's not very complicated. There are a few additional requirements, but again, they're quite detailed. So if you are on that stage where you're applying for the visa, and if there are some things that I can, if you want to ask, just drop an email and I'll answer them more specifically. But it's fairly straightforward. It shouldn't be too difficult. How much time does it take between GMC registration and starting a job? Again, this varies from person to person. I think, like I told you in my journey, I got my GMC registration in July and I started my job in December. But, some people take only 2 months. Some people can take up to a year. It varies from person to person, but just, my advice would be don't give up. And then how much time does it take before starting specialty training? So again, this varies from people to people. The thing is, you apply for this specialty training and then it depends upon whether you get into the specialty training or not. And then again, if you don't get into the specialty training, you have to apply for next year. So it kind of depends a bit on luck. And, again, because I think I didn't want to, specialty training, there's so many specialties and it would be so detailed that I didn't want to go into that. But, if later someone wants to ask about any specific specialty, I can maybe do another seminar later or something. But it varies from person to person is my answer. What is the main responsibility of the person who goes in clinical attachment? Like, what will he do? I think I have already answered this question. You don't really have a lot of responsibility. You're a supernumerary, and you can observe the people and you can take part in the jobs that the junior doctors do normally, but under supervision. So again, it'll just help you understand how the NHS works. Can you share the link of the stuff related to PLAB 1 or PLAB 2? Yes, of course I can. If you just if you just drop me an email on this email address, I'll share the links with you. Most of them are available on the Facebook groups, but if you guys are having difficulty, or what I'll do is I'll try to make a link of all the links and I'll send it to Shifa and she can share it with all of you. But I didn't want my slides to be too crowded, so I didn't include that. What is your tips for writing a good CV and portfolio? Again, just be as, brief as possible. Don't put the things that make you stand out. 1 to 2 pages of a CV is more than enough. Some people, they go on just the internship, they write half a page. Oh, I did this, I did that. So you don't have to write all of that because everyone does pretty much the same thing. So just try to, it's in a way, just sell yourself, what makes you stand out. I think for me, I mentioned that I had the elective I had, and I had done a research project back home during my house job. So I was like, okay, I've done this, I had done a few teaching for medical students as well. So I tried to kind of sell myself and what would make me stand out. So find what makes you stand out. Are the certificates issued by IMI considered equally significant by the recruiting hospitals as was issued by? Sorry, what is IMI?
So I think the question is for the organization that SIVU is a part of.
Yeah.
I think the certificates that SIVU has, I think Dr. Shabi and Dr. Nanjiani can speak to it, but I think I think they would be able to speak to it better.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know, whether the certificates issued by them are significant.
Dr. Shabi, is that a question?
Well, that's a good question. See, IMI is, and this is for Dr. Datu, IMI is a parent body of Sadiq International Virtual University. It's an NGO which started about 25 years ago. And we're doing a lot of work in terms of health and education across the world. If you go to the web page that Shifa will share with you, you'll learn a great deal about it. Now, we have several conferences that are going on throughout the year and in different parts of the country, including Pakistan. So if you're onto the system and if you look at the web page, you'll find there are certain conferences which will give you CME points and they will be recognized internationally. The conferences that we have globally, like for example, one we had last year in December in Karachi, and before that we had in Tehran and Mashhad and other places, also in Najaf and also in Canada, they have accredited CME points. So they'll be recognized. But the routine webinars and seminars that we do are basically instructional and educational. There is a conference coming up on, starting from 5th till 9th of April, 6th, 7th, and 8th, with IRA's University of Lucknow, India, and they are giving 9 CME points. So my suggestion would be that all those who are interested in gaining CME points and accreditation or certification, please look at the webpage of Sadiq International Virtual University, which will then take you to the IMI's webpage, which Shifa can share with you, and you'll be guided through it. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shabi. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand, if it's about CME points, try to get as many, whatever country you're in, as many CME points as you can. It does help you later as well. Is there any fully funded clinical attachment? Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact answer to this. I think the answer would be no. I haven't heard of any fully funded clinical attachments personally. There might be some, but unfortunately, I haven't heard of any. In fact, some clinical attachments, they actually ask you to kind of give an administration fee because, the hospital is kind of hosting you. But some of them are actually free. You might just have to, cover your own expenses when you come to the UK. But I'm not sure if they're completely fully funded or not, unfortunately. I can probably, if you can drop me an email, I can look into this and maybe give you a better answer, but not that I've heard of. Is it necessary to do research work for applying for PLAB? No, it isn't. It's not necessary to do it. It's not a requirement. But again, like, I explained to you, when you are applying for jobs and even when you're applying for specialty training in the UK, it just researches and all of these things, leadership roles and all are something that the NHS, they really, it's appreciated in the NHS. And even when you're applying for specialty training, if you have a publication, it'll actually give you some points. So, these are just kind of like some tips I gave you guys, that if you guys are, doing your house job and you have the time and the opportunity, utilize that time to do something, because, it will always give you, like, when you are kind of applying for jobs, you're like, oh, what makes me stand out, or what can I kind of mention that I did a bit different. So, you can be like, okay, no, I managed my house job as well, and I did some extracurriculars as well, and I did something extra as well. So it's not necessary, but if you have the opportunity, definitely do it. Which option is better, IELTS or OET? So personally, I would recommend IELTS because, like I mentioned, it can help you in the visa as well. But again, if you're not able to get the required score, or if you feel OET is easier, go for that. Either of them are acceptable. Can I just prepare USMLE and PLAB 1 at the same time? I would say the answer to this is no, I guess. I mean, you can probably, but I would suggest that it's easier to like focus on one thing, because the USMLE curriculum and the PLAB 1 curriculum are very different and poles apart. So if you want to come to the UK and you focus on your PLAB, you probably can. I mean, there's no restriction that you can't give your USMLE when you're giving your PLAB, but I think when they say when you're focusing on too many different things, or when you have your feet in too many different boats, it's not good. Just try to focus on one thing, I would recommend. And that will, help you better.
Can I just add here that for the USMLEs, we have a program of residency training through IMI USA. And if you're interested, Shifa, can we arrange a program similar to this next time from the US and Canada base? Because people are interested in USMLE and getting jobs in the USA. Well, I'm sure we can help them.
Yes, perfect. And for all that have registered here, we'll keep you on the SADC International Virtual University mailing list so we can all stay connected that way.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for that as well. Then do you think the pandemic will make selections more competitive? Again, this is something that is it's difficult to answer. Yes, there has been a bit, even with the PLAB exams, I think there was a little bit of a time where PLAB 2 exams were cancelled, and there is a bit of a backlog maybe, but GMC are trying their best to open more PLAB 2 seats. So again, I think I can't give a specific, it's very difficult to give like a specific answer to this, yes or no. I would just suggest is that, even if it is more competitive, everything in medicine is going to be competitive, wherever you practice. So even if it is competitive, don't lose heart, focus, work hard, and inshallah, you will get there. Can we give PLAB 1 during house job? Yes, you can. You just have to have graduated medical college before giving PLAB 1. So yeah, even I give my PLAB 1 during house job. Until what age can we apply? There is no age limit. You can apply at any age. I've known people who've, had many years of many years of experience and then they applied. So there's no age limit. That's a very good thing. I'm just a little concerned about getting my date for PLAB 1 exam. I have seen my seniors waiting for almost 2 years just to get a PLAB 1 exam date. So yes, this is unfortunate. The problem is because I think of COVID, because since COVID came, there was like a bit of a backlog. And I think generally more people are opting towards PLAB these days. But I mean, I don't know about the PLAB 1 exam. I think I have read somewhere that I think this year there aren't, any PLAB 1 dates available. But what I would suggest, if you guys plan I'm sure like this backlog is created by COVID. what I would suggest you guys do is, if you're in fifth year medical school or whatever stage you're in, try to get your IELTS done and keep checking, either email them or keep checking for updates about when more seats are going to be available, and try to book one at the earliest convenience. Till then, you can, you can do any extracurricular activity, or you can, continue working in your medical, like in your home country in any capacity, and that's why I kind of said that if there is a delay in giving your PLAB 1 or your PLAB 2 exams, don't sit idle for too long. Just keep doing something, so that when you're actually even creating your portfolio, it looks, you can tell that, okay, I haven't, I have done something and I haven't just sat idle for very long. But yeah, even with the PLAB 2 exams, I had a couple of my colleagues who gave PLAB 1 last year, but they were able to, after the gap, they have been able to book their exams in either June or latest August. So hopefully this backlog should get covered soon. Can you locum in your house job? Sorry, I don't really understand this question. Is this for your home country, or? Ali Rajani has asked this. Sorry, I can't really understand the question. If you want to raise your hand and just clarify what you mean.
So what I mean is, can you locum in the first job that you have when you enter the UK?
Yes, you can. Yeah. You can locum, yes.
Okay,
so,
that's
sorry, I thought you, yeah. So definitely you can. Even the job that I'm working in, you can locum, and there are maybe some requirements, but you can locum, and that's a good way if you want to, make some extra savings. What are the prospects for someone coming from Pakistan after completing MRCP and 5 years or less postgraduate experience, 2 years med and 3 years nephrology? So, like I explained, you might want to have a look at, Farah, you might want to have a look at maybe the MTI, if you have completed your MRCP, the MTI training initiative. And maybe I have put the link as well for the MTI initiative training website. I know a couple of people who've done the MRCP and, who had more years of experience, and they've come to the MIT route, the MTI route, and they've applied for training. So you can either look into that, or you can just follow the pathway that I did, but again, it's just maybe the MTI would be shorter for you. And I did tell you the pros and cons. Again, the pathway is quite, it depends on person to person, because I didn't apply for it. I don't know too much about it, but I have a couple of colleagues who have applied for it. And, if you want any more details, I can maybe get you in touch with those colleagues and they can guide you better. Do we need to have some show some bank statements too for all this process? So yes, when you are applying for the visas, right, that at that time you need to have you need to show your bank statements. Basically, the reason why they ask you for a bank statement is because they want to kind of just know that when you're coming to the UK, you have enough funds to sponsor your stay. Again, a lot of us, when you're doing house jobs, unfortunately, our salaries are not enough that, our bank statements might not be enough. But the easy way for this is, and what I did is as well, you can just either show your parents' bank statement and just give an affidavit, supporting affidavit, that, they will be able to sponsor your stay. So yes, you have to show bank statements, but there's always a way around it. And you can always ask someone to sponsor you. I'm in my final year of med school. How should I start my preparations? Like prepare for IELTS, or first prepare for PLAB 1 and then later? No. So the first step, what I would definitely recommend is, the first step is give your IELTS or OET, because you can't give your PLAB 1 till you don't. So go step by step, get your IELTS done first. So if you're in your final year of med school, right, give your IELTS, try to finish your IELTS when you're finishing your med school, and then prepare for your PLAB 1 and try to give it as soon as you can after your PLAB 1. So it's because you can't basically give your PLAB 1 till you don't give your IELTS. What is the estimated budget for this journey? That is a very good question. Unfortunately, I haven't, I can't remember. To be very honest with you, I'll be like, the answer is I can't remember. But what I will do is I will because everything is like, it's different. I can't even honestly remember. I think PLAB 1 maybe costs like £200. PLAB 2 costs around £800 if I'm not wrong. And then, as you go along, you have to pay for, even when you're verifying your medical degree through Epic, there's visa fees, there's verification fees. There are quite a few things involved. But what I can do is I'll share this. If you again drop me an email, right? There is actually this one webpage. It's called Road to the UK. They're also, I think they have made an estimate budget of how much it can take you. And then again, it varies from people to people, whether they pass their PLAB 2 in their first go, or you pass your PLAB 1 in your first go. So I don't have an answer to this, but what I can do is I can look it up for you. And if you drop me an email, I can let you know, because, yeah, it would be nice, but I can't think of it from the top of my head, and I don't want to give you a wrong figure. So just drop me an email and I'll look it up for you. Are there any scholarships we can apply for MSc programs or internal medicine or sports medicine in the UK? MSc programs. So I think, again, I'm sure there might be some scholarships. Again, the answer to this is, unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure. There are a lot of MSc programs for internal medicine and sports medicine. And personally, I haven't seen any, any like specific websites that mention the scholarships. But what you can do is, maybe when you're applying for the MSc programs, or, when you're looking for the advertisements, you can kind of email the university or the hospital, and you can ask them if they are able to provide any scholarships or any funding. So I think it would depend from university to university. But yeah.
Could I add here, Dr. Ratu, that maybe there is a program for University of Loughborough through the Commonwealth for sports medicine. It's worth trying there.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not aware of that, but
yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Commonwealth scholarships are still available, and University of Loughborough specializes in sports medicine.
Yeah. So again, this is something, I haven't looked into myself, but I'm sure there should be options. Are there any more questions? Or
I think just one live. Mustafa Jawad, would you like to ask your question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Do you hear me? Firstly, I want to thank you for this opportunity and fruitful and rich session that you had done. Thank you a lot. And my question is about the CV and portfolio.
Yes.
What is your tips or recommendation for writing a good CV and portfolio? Especially, we have a lot of activities here in Iraq, in my country, in my home country, with that is not officially documented or as a volunteering activities.
Yeah. Oh, so volunteer activities, or like any, like I said, these ones are actually very good, and these will make you stand out. So in your CV, mention what would make you different, because some people, what they do is, in their supporting information, right? Like I've looked at a couple of profiles, and they write, like, for example, in the English skills, they will write like a paragraph about, oh, my English skills are very good, I passed my IELTS exam with all of these scores. But this doesn't really make you stand out, because everyone who's applied, who's actually gotten the GMC registration, right, they have demonstrated those English skills and have gotten the required score. And your English skills are mainly going to be tested during the interview, right? So don't waste your time talking about things that will be same for everything. So like, if you've mentioned, like, you've done some volunteer activities, that's a very good thing, and make sure that you mention that, but try to keep it brief, because obviously even your volunteer activities, you can write pages about it. But what you want to do is, like, what I kind of, because see, even if you're hiring someone for a job, right, you're going to have hundreds of CVs. You don't want to put too much of information that the person gets bored and moves on to the next one. You want to kind of highlight what you've done and actually make them stop and read your CV. So if there's any volunteer service, definitely put it. Anything that's different, put it. Obviously, I'm not saying don't mention about your IELTS exam, and if you've gotten a good score, mention that, but just put like one line of it, not more than that. And then try to make it as brief as possible. Like whatever your medical, like, if you've done 2-3 volunteer things, make like a bullet point, just write in 2 lines what you were involved in, whether you were in a leadership capacity, whether you were in a managerial role. So that's my point, and just make it very clear and very concise as well. And with CVs, I can send you guys, like, there are always these templates available online as well. So you'll have a look, and it'll guide you better as to what a good CV would make.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
That answer your question? Is that fine?
Yes, it's fine to me. Thank you.
All right, no worries. And if I give my IELTS OET exam during 5th year, won't it get expired at the time of PLAB 2? And no problem for the session. So yeah, the IELTS exam is actually it's valid for 2 years, right? So which is why I'm saying try to, if you give it, like, if you are able to give your IELTS exam during the end of 5th year, so it should be like, even I showed you guys my journey, it was around 2 years, so it would be valid by the time you do PLAB 2 and GMC registration. Even one more thing is that because of COVID, like, the GMC does understand that there is a bit of a gap and in giving your PLAB 1 and your PLAB 2 exams. Like, even your PLAB 1 initially, it used to be valid for 2 years, and you would have to give your PLAB 2 within 2 years of giving your PLAB 1. Now, recently, I have been told that, and I've checked the website as well, that they said that it's valid for 3 years as well. Those who've given it after a certain date. So, if you have any, even if it does get expired, right, you can always give it again, like, or you can basically you can speak to them. There are these options as well, where you can talk to the GMC, and they'll give you like these, they give you like these forms and everything, and they'll tell you a way whether to kind of just prove that your English skills have been up to date. Again, there is a link, and if you want, I'll share it with you later. Just send me an email, but there's a way around it. But the reason why I'm saying is try to get done with your IELTS is because sometimes people just get stuck getting the required score. I know a couple of people who had to give their IELTS 2 or 3 times. And because they hadn't started early enough, they just wasted 3-4 months getting the required score for IELTS before they could give the PLAB 1. So try to do it at the end of your 5th year, or even if it's not at the end of your 5th year, if you feel your PLAB 1, if there are not dates available soon, so you can just plan it accordingly and give it a couple of months before your PLAB 1. But yeah, don't give it too early and don't give it too late.
Perfect. No, I think Dr. Shabi had to to leave, but I just wanted to thank you. A marathon, almost 1 hour of question and answer. It's just so invaluable for us to have you here today, and we're so thankful.
Oh, no problem. It was my absolute pleasure. It was really thank you for hosting me as well. And I hope I did answer everyone's questions, but if you guys have any further queries, you have my email address, feel free to message me. And what I would also, if you guys can do me a favor as well, if I can send you a feedback form, and if you guys can give me some feedback on the session, I would be very happy.
That would be great. I'll make sure to forward that to everyone.
Yeah, should I send it to you, Shifa?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll send it to you then. And thank you, everybody. It was lovely hosting. It was really good taking part in this session, and I hope I was able to help you guys towards your UK journey, and and hopefully, inshallah, see you guys in the future once you guys come to the UK.
Yes. And
thank you, Mariam. Thank you, Mariam,
Dr.
for such a
for
comprehensive overview. And thank you, Shifa, for arranging the session. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
All right, we'll see everyone soon again.
Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.